It is rewarding to write your own fantasy story, to make the fantasy world seem realistic. Describe the setting in detail. Create some rules regarding magic and the supernatural. And write your story down. Use your imagination to create a world that draws readers in. So, we are going to watch about the how to write a credible fantasy story.
Method 1. Establishing your setting.
First is describe the physical surroundings of your fantasy world. The setting of your story can be as broad or narrow as you like. Describe the sky, buildings, ground, and flora and fauna to help your readers imagine the world for themselves.
Step 2. Draw a map, if it's helpful.
Draw a map on a piece of paper and include the major landmarks, cities, rivers, oceans, etc. Many famous authors included maps of their fantasy worlds in their work, such as J.R.R. Tolkien's map of Middle-earth. Step 3. Describe the culture and the political setting of your world. If you are creating your story in an actual place, describe any aspects of the place that deviate from real life. This gives you great scope to use your imagination. Make note of details such as the political system, the currency used, common cultural practices, and the history of the.
Finally, decide what level of technology your society has.
Ground your fantasy world in a certain moment in time. Invent technological advances to make them seem futuristic. If you're writing something set in a more primitive society, include basic technologies.
Method 2. Making the rules.
First is create social conventions if your story is set in a fantasy land. Many fantasy writers base social conventions on aspects from the real world. Describe the different social classes and conventions to make your world feel more realistic. Research rituals from ancient cultures or isolated cultures to help you gain ideas.
Step 2. Decide how supernatural elements work in your story.
Supernatural elements are key to most fantasy stories. Consider if magic is an accepted part of your fantasy world and if ghosts are real and can interact with humans. Describe the origins of the magic powers. Step 3. Write specific rules for how weapons and supernatural objects work. If your characters fight using a particular style of weaponry, do some research. For example, if your main character is an archer, learn about the basic skills and equipment used in archery.
Finally, follow your own rules consistently.
When making rules for your fantasy world, be consistent. Audiences will get frustrated if rules are bendable based on the situation or conflict. Once you establish a rule, do not change it. This makes the program's fantasy world feel credible.
Method 3. Defining characters. First is create non-human creatures to add variation.
Part of the fun of a fantasy world is seeing mythical creatures come to life. Use traditional mythical creatures, such as elves, fairies, ogres, and vampires, or create your own.
Step 2. Decide what motivates your characters.
Ask yourself what each character wants. This motivation could be a goal, the influence of their peers, or their own personal values. Give your characters strengths and flaws that relate to their motivation. Step 3. Create a hero character with pure motives to win over your readers. Almost all fantasy stories have a hero. Give this character unique strength and determination to help move the plot forward. Try to choose an otherwise ordinary character as your hero. Step 4. Consider including a mentor to give the story depth. Traditionally, the mentor is someone slightly older than your hero. Many fantasy stories feature a mentor, such as Obi-Wan in Star Wars. Use your mentor to help guide your hero throughout the story. Finally, include a memorable villain to make the story compelling. A villain is an important element of a fantasy story, as it gives the hero someone to fight against. Make the villain's motive clear to make the character realistic. For example, give your villain a tragic backstory.
Method 4. Writing the story.
First is outline your story to help you craft it accurately. Use bullet points to draft the order of the main events in your story. Headings are traditionally marked by Roman numerals and subheadings are marked by lowercase letters or numbers.
Step 2. Introduce the central problem.
In many fantasy stories, the character leaving home is the turning point. Maybe your character needs to go on a journey. For example, your character could receive news that their mother, who lives in another country, is ill.
Step 3. Develop the hero's story with mini conflicts.
Each event in the story should help to develop your hero. Use each event and conflict to test your hero's strengths, skills, and special talents. These skills will eventually be used to help overcome the villain.
Finally, choose an appropriate ending to finish your story.
A fantasy story can have a happy or sad ending. Create a climax for your story. Try to tie up emotional loose ends as well.
We hope it is useful to you. Please subscribe to our channel to upskill yourself.